It's all about that work. That's who we are. That's who we're going to be. That's not going to change. We don't talk about numbers. We talk about, hey, there's only really one column, and it's that one on the left. Yeah, there's one on the right too. So when we lose games, man, it just don't go away right away. I mean, it stings for a while. But the one thing our guys do, they go back to work on Monday, and they're ready to roll.
Welcome back to another episode of The Burn. I am Ben Newman, and you know how we do this every single week. We're going to bring you a story of an athlete, an entertainer, a celebrity, a coach, an author, somebody who is recognized on their journey to success that why and purpose is not enough. There's this underlying burn that ignites your why and purpose and causes you to be disciplined on the days that you don't want to do it, and especially after you win. Today's an incredibly special episode for me because you're going to have the opportunity to spend time with one of my dear friends from my journey in coaching, Brian Anderson, who is the running backs coach at Kansas State University. And when I talk about a history and commitment, not only for the burn within oneself, but establishing and finding the burn in others and committing your life to it, I think you are going to enjoy this time that we spend together with Brian Anderson. You're going to realize, because we're probably going to have to cut up a little bit because it's what he and I like to do together, but you're going to see why he and I have a great relationship, but why young men for all these years through the game of football have been attracted to not just learning about the X's and O's and dominating and running the ball, but why they have learned to attack life with Brian Anderson. So my dear friend, my brother on this journey, Brian Anderson, welcome to The Burn.
Man, thanks a lot, Ben, for the introduction. I appreciate that. And it's good to be on this show. I watched many of them and listened to many guys talk about their burn and what it means to them. And I'm excited to tell my story.
Well, when I think about you, I think about the word selfless. And I could take that so many different directions, just from how you approach situations to where a player might be frustrating at a time, or to you giving your all when somebody's at the highest possible level of success, which we will address. Where does that come from? Where does the burn come from you? Where does this passion to give and to serve come from for you? Where did it all start, BA?
It all started when I was a player, and I got fortunate to play with some really, really good players. But I was not on their same level. My job was to get those guys prepared for games. And I had a passion about the game, about playing the game. And I wanted to do everything I could to be a good teammate, to help those guys be successful on Saturday. And I learned a lot of that from a guy named Brian Cox, who played 12 years in the National Football League. He got on me one day in practice and said, I need you to do these things for me to help me prepare. I took that in and ran with it. That's been my passion, to make sure I can continue to help kids learn the game, become better players, become better teammates. All those things I learned from him, and I give him a lot of credit for that.
Is there anything that from taking us back even further, right? So that's the selfless answer I would have expected, right? So you didn't have the same level of talent, but I'm going to prepare you. Where did the burn come from that's underlying that level of burn? Was it mom, dad, family? Where did the work ethic and the burn and the desire come from?
Well, a lot of it came from my older brother Kevin, who played with Coach Kleiman at Northern Iowa. We didn't come from a big family, but not a lot of people in our family played sports, and so I saw my brother's passion to play the game, and I kind of learned from him what it's going to take to be successful. He was kind of my rock, and he kind of showed me the way. As good a player as he was growing up, everything he did, man, I'd be like, that's my big brother. That's my big brother. And so I wanted to try to be like him. And as I got older and my passion became more and more and more, because I saw and when he got a chance to go to college, that lit a fire in me that I want to be successful like him. And so he became my burn because I wanted to be like him. Even though I didn't have the same college career that he had, but he still instilled in me, you got to have passion for this game, and you got to have a burn to be successful in this game. I learned all that from him, and that's why I still do to this day. So I always want to please him. He's always told me he's jealous of my career. But I said, I'm not having this career without you. And the reason I do what I do is because of what you taught me, growing up in the game of football. And so I give him so much credit also to help me understand what it is to have a burn, to have passion about something. And I give him a lot of credit for that.
I love it. I love hearing that. And I love hearing all these years later that's still motivating you to honor the lessons that you learned from him.
Yes.
You've also had the blessing of learning some amazing lessons from some incredible coaches, whether it be Jerry Kill at Minnesota, now Coach Kleiman, who I think you and I both know it. He'd probably be mad at us for saying it, but since he's not on here, he can't stop us from saying it. Coach Kleiman's going to be a Hall of Fame coach. I mean, what he's done at all levels of the game of football and the consistency, and it's just incredible. So you've been around some great coaches. How important has culture been at your different stops on your coaching journey?
Very, very, very important. When I went to, even in the junior college ranks, when I first started coaching, the culture of having a bunch of kids from a lot of different areas, different backgrounds, and trying to mold them to be a team. And the most important part is getting guys on the same page. But it all starts from the top. Whether it be Randy Ball at Western Illinois, or Marty Allen at Highland Community College, or Skip Foster at Coffeyville Community College, and then on with Jerry Kill at Southern Illinois, Northern Illinois, University of Minnesota, or Tracy Clays, our Brock Spack at Illinois State, And so I've been very fortunate to be around guys who help build programs up. And that's one thing that I take a lot of pride in on some of the places I've been. There were programs that were at the bottom, but had to work their way up to become successful. And it's all about the kind of coaches you have, and then all the kind of players you have to make sure they understand what we're trying to get accomplished. And so very, very fortunate to be around some really good coaches. And then topping it off with Coach Kleiman, I've learned so much football under him. It's amazing that a head coach like him, how much time he spends with the offense, how much time he spends with the defense, how much time he spends with special teams. I mean, he is a football coach more than a head coach. And I look up to him when it comes to those kind of things, because it's so important that those kids see that he has passion, not just as a head coach, but has passion for all the other offense, defense, and special team areas of our football team, and also being a good leader, leading from the front. I mean, it's been awesome. It's been an awesome run so far.
A major part of reaching your peak performance is having the right people in your life or organization. And to help with that, we are proud to introduce our strategic partner, Spark Companies. No matter the industry or workforce needs, Spark Companies provide extremely effective solutions for leadership recruitment, staffing, and other workforce solutions. For our listeners, Spark is offering a no-cost consultative session to help identify your specific needs and how they might be able to help. To schedule your free consultation, head over to bennewman.net/spark. That's bennewman.net/SPARK. Now, let's get back into the show.
I think back to one of the greatest lessons I learned from him when I started with him now 10 years ago at North Dakota State. And I remember, and I highlighted it in the book, Uncommon Leadership, when I dedicated the chapter to him, find your edge in the details. And you nailed it. There's so many coaches that get to his level and they focus more on leverage than the details of how they can still contribute. And right. He gets into every single nook and cranny, every single detail. And now the time at Kansas State, I think to myself, we're getting ready to start year 6. And in reality, year 6 started the day after we won the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Like, for guys like you and I, people don't understand, like, it's immediate. There's really no time off because you can't turn this switch off. And so I want to take you back 6 years. We're gonna have some fun with this, and I'm gonna catch you and we're gonna get you real emotion on this. So Coach Kleiman and I sat in his office, and many people have heard this story, but it was from years ago when I told it when he was on the burn. And he and I sat in his office at North Dakota State the week that we're going down to go win this final national championship before we all unite in Manhattan, Kansas, and Little Apple to do what we're now doing. And we're talking. He says, well, what's the theme for this team going to be? And I remember this conversation. We're going back and forth. I'm like, well, Coach, like, we can't do or say things we said here at North Dakota State. Like, we got to come up with something new. We got to come up with something fresh. And at the time, I was reading a book by my friend Joshua Medcalf called Pound the Stone. And so I start telling him the premise. He's like, that's it. It's Pound the Stone. And I'm sure you remember that first talk. I come in, and now the real one's at Kansas State, but this is the one I keep in my office at home. I come in with that sledgehammer for the first talk at Kansas State. I want to hear from you. What the hell were you thinking? Were you thinking this dude's got some screws loose? We're going to see how this goes? Because here's the wild thing about culture. Coach Kleiman and I took a risk because as many young athletes and teams as you've been around, those kids could have very easily, or coaches could have resisted. What the hell's wrong with this guy? Like, you got to get him out of here. But we all bought into that Pound the Stone. But what was your initial thought when you saw me come in with that sledgehammer?
Well, I knew we had a lot of work to do, but I didn't know we were with a sledgehammer. It was moving for me because I'd never been a part of anything like that. I'd never had as many stops as we've had. I've never had a performance coach. And so it was enlightening for me to kind of learn about it and learn what you did at North Dakota State and learn how those guys at North Dakota State bought into all the things you guys did there and helped them continue on their winning success. And so I was at all, to be honest with you. I didn't know what to expect. Once I start digging, when you explain what Pound the Stone meant, and it's an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing. You got to keep going to work every single day. I enjoyed the opportunity to learn what that meant. I enjoyed the opportunity to learn from you what you do, not being on the field coach. All those things that you did in that first meeting, man, I was like wide-eyed because it's like, again, I've never been a part of anyone like that before, anything like that before. So I was just like, okay, this is what we do now. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to win. And so I bought in from day one because I didn't know anything else. So I was in there learning for the first time going, okay, are we all getting sledgehammers? Are we going out pounding the pavement or what are we doing? But it all makes sense now. It all makes sense 5 years later of what we've done. And a lot of that credit goes to you and those kids believing in what you talk about, and they've jumped on that right away. And obviously it's proven it's helped us in a big way.
Well, I have the blessing of God putting words through me that I get to share, but the work is done by you coaches and, the work is done by the players. So I appreciate the words, but, I get to be on that sideline. It's the biggest blessing for me. 10 years of being on the sideline with all of you guys. I mean, it's something that I never take for granted. I enjoy every moment. I enjoy the car rides when, you and I are riding after the game together, having real conversations. But through all of it, whether it's our real raw conversations where it's not surfacey stuff, we're getting real with each other. Because guys like us that perform at this level, we need it. We need each other because this is not easy. So whether it's phone calls you've made to me or phone calls I've made to you, it's one of the things I cherish about our relationship. But I want to speak to some of the results that the players and the staff have had at Kansas State, because a lot of people don't realize this. When we came in, and this really speaks to culture, and those that are listening, that are coaching others, finding that message that resonates and being consistent with it. Because that's all we've done. We've continued to say, Pound the Stone doesn't change. We may share different elements. But when you look over the last 3 years, knowing that when we showed up to Manhattan, Kansas, people are like, you can't win football games in Manhattan, Kansas. You can't recruit to Manhattan, Kansas. Like, yes, it's amazing what Bill Snyder did, but like, what can possibly happen now? That's what we walked into. And we all leaned into belief. And other than us in that building, who would have thought that these last 3 years, we'd be one of 11 teams in all of Power 5 football that have won 8 or more games? One of 11 teams, a Big 12 championship, 2 bowl championships. It just came out. We finished 18th in the country this year, 14th in the country. How important is culture? And one thing I'd love for you to speak to, we really don't talk about results much. We really talk about the work. And what we've realized is when we talk about the work, and then most importantly, we do the work, the byproduct is the success that we've been having. How important do you think that is, that daily work and that messaging?
Well, and that's one thing that we say every day as a running back group. At the end of practice, just work. And I think guys have bought into that part of it because work is part what Coach Kleiman talks about, the details. You have to work to get the details. You have to work at practice on an everyday basis to make sure your body's right. When we talk about the catapult numbers, you have to work in the weight room to make sure you're healthy enough to perform on Saturdays. I mean, so everything we do, it's all about that work. And working is a part of us. That's who we are. That's who we're going to be. That's not going to change. We're not based results because the results take care of itself if you put in good work. We don't talk about numbers. We talk about, hey, there's only really one column, and it's that one on the left. Yeah, there's one on the right too. When we lose games around there, it hurts. It hurts bad. And because I know how much time we put in and our players put in to be successful on Saturdays. So when we lose games, man, it just don't go away right away. I mean, it stings for a while. But the one thing our guys do, they go back to work on Monday and they're ready to roll. And so they're ready to get that nasty taste out of their mouth. Because I know one thing they like to do. They love celebrating in that locker room with those hammers. And it's a joy, man. It's a joy. It's all about the work that our guys put in every day. And the guys setting the tone, like I Deuce Vaughn and I, everybody knows that he and I have a really close relationship. He sent me a message last week that he was going to be active 2 weeks ago. And he was so fired up for the opportunity. And he said, Coach, I'm just going to run with it when I get it. So that's what you should do. But I said, I want to thank you for setting the tone in our room. What you did and how you handled yourself and how you put in that work, not just on the practice field, but in the weight room, how you took care of your body, all those things that has paid off our room in a big way. The guys are trying to do what you did because they saw this how it worked and the success you had. So you putting in that extra work on an everyday basis has helped our room in a big way. You know what I mean? And the last thing he said to me in that text, Coach, that's all you ever talked about was putting in work, and everything will take care of itself. So that part of it for us is it's number one, State. It's put that work in and we'll live the results afterwards.
I want to honor you in a big way because you deserve it. Similar to Coach Kleiman, he's not here, so I could say he's going to become a Hall of Famer. He can't stop me. And you're on a Zoom screen at a conference for the coaches across the country, so you can't jump through and stop me either because I know you don't like this kind of stuff, so I get to say what I want to say. You've been helping and coaching players to the NFL for a long, long time. And, there's times I've sat in the room where you've called an NFL player to provide a message for the current guys that are in your room. I know your history getting guys to the league. So you've had a long history of success coaching running backs and helping them elevate. But I did see something with Deuce Vaughn that changed. And as much as it was Deuce Vaughn, I watched you change as a coach from the first couple of years that we had together to then watching Deuce. And it was amazing for me because, as you know, we can't give everybody all the secrets. People think I give like a 3-minute speech in the locker room. They have no idea what I actually do, and we're going to keep it that way.
Right.
But when I come into your room first to spend time with the running backs the day before a game to start prepping, I get to watch your messaging. I get to watch your consistency. I get to watch how you pull videos and find the right message for the right time, for the right week, and how much you love these kids. But the thing that I saw where you elevated with Deuce, which is now I see it in DJ Giddens. I see it with all the young running backs in the room. All these kids, you're going to continue this tradition of getting players into the league. With Deuce, you empowered him because he was willing to do the work to take ownership. And I remember watching you guys on the sideline. I remember where you'd be asking him, Deuce, what do you think? What do you want? And that's not normal for coaching. The normal coaching is I know I'm the coach. I put guys in the league. This is what we're going to do. What was it with Deuce? And did you feel like you elevated as a coach? Because I feel like I saw that in you through that relationship to make you better and stronger. Because it wasn't just him. I saw the elevation in you.
One of the things that he and I did during the week, we would spend time together and watch film together. And so we would watch certain run schemes and how teams attack those run schemes. And so by the time we got to the game, I gave him the freedom to say, hey, what do you like against these guys? And he was like, I like counter, I like power, I like inside zone. I really love duo versus these. So we would get in the game and, He may not have a couple runs early, but he's like, hey, don't worry, stay with it. It's going to pop. And next thing you know, here he goes 62 yards later. And he comes to the side and goes, I told you. And so what'd you see? Well, coach, just like we saw in film, saw the linebacker. He got out of the gap. I took advantage of it. So him wanting to be a better player, him wanting to be taking his football IQ to another level, those are things that he wanted to do. And I was just there to help him on part of that journey, to help him be successful in that journey. So he gets a lot of the credit because he came to me and put, hey, coach, this is what I want. This is what I want to get better at. And now it's rubbed off on DJ because DJ's doing the same thing. He said, hey, coach, this is what I need to get better at. And it's kind of cool. So during special teams at practice, I might look over across the field and DJ's doing something on his own that no one's telling him to do. He's working the game. He's taking ownership in his ability. And that's what I try to tell is you got to take ownership in your ability to get better. You always got to do things that sometimes you don't want to do that's going to help you. And so when I saw him doing things at practice by himself for a 5-minute period or 2-minute period or telling the quarterback, hey, I want to throw with you extra on some route stuff, it's everything that, like I said, that Deuce did, it's rubbing off on those guys. And that's what makes me more proud than anything because he set that tone in that room for those things.
So those, you bring up two different names, two different players, and we could go on a long list of individuals that you've impacted, have performed at a high level. I'd love for you to address how important is it to know that all players are different? Because you just shared both of those players took ownership, but both of those players are different human beings. And one of the things that I've noticed that you do that I've always believed in is you can't treat everybody the same. No. And you have to get to understand somebody's heart, their fire, their passion, where they come from. Like DJ, we both know. I mean, he and I were messaging about it the other day. He was back fishing. I'm like, I know you're happy. And he's like, man, I needed this day to go cut loose and fish. And so, like, we know he likes to fish. Deuce didn't go. They're different people. How important is it to really get to know your players?
Oh, it's everything. It's everything. Knowing, their backgrounds is so important to kind of get an understanding of what they like and what they don't like. What makes them tick? How can you push them? I've been very fortunate. The other night, this is unbelievable. So what night was that? Sunday night, I'm out to dinner. And at this dinner table, I got 8 former players that are now coaching. And they're all different. They're all different from different areas of the country. Different. I mean, mom, dad, one mom. I mean, unbelievable. But we're all sitting around this dinner table having a good time, laughing. And this guy's not from the same school. Guys I coach at other schools, but they're friends with the guys I coach at the other school because of me. And they're calling each other now about, the coaching profession. But me getting to know those kids inside and out and what can I do to continue to help them that's everything. You got to get to know your players. That's so important for their success. If you don't know your players, how can you get on a player? If you don't know your players, how you can't trust a player? It's all about the trust factor, and they have to be able to trust you also. And so, me talking to my guys, not just about football, but life, school, family, whatever it may be. I mean, sometimes Ben, during spring ball, I may not talk about any football. I may have a 30-minute meeting. I may talk about football for 5 minutes. We may talk about other things. I let guys tell their story to their teammates. I want their teammates to get to know them. So I think all those things are so important. But the biggest thing is you got to get to know your players outside the game. If that's all you talk about is just football with those guys, they will tune you out. They will tune you out in a heartbeat. And I never want that because I want all those guys to be successful because they want to be successful. They wouldn't be in the room if they didn't want to be successful. So how can I help them on their journey? And part of that journey is me getting to know those guys to help them become successful.
Final question. What's the greatest lesson that you learned from a coach?
You know what? It's Coach Kleiman. And I've been around some really good coaches, but not knowing that one word, details. When I heard him talk about that, and I heard how many times he said that in our meetings, man, that struck me in a big way. And that helped me become a better coach. Because now I'm sitting there going, man, I thought I knew the game. I thought I knew what to coach my guys on. But there's so many little things about that word details, about some of the things you talked about the boxing. Minute things that you may see in a detail of a play that's going to help you. You might need that 1 second that's going to be like, oh, I got it. I see it. That's going to help me on Saturday. So I've learned that's the biggest lesson I've learned in all my years of coaching is that word, because I never heard that word before in the game. And as long as I've been coaching, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. I would say that's the biggest lesson I have learned. And like I said, been coaching for a long time, but hearing that word in 2019, that changed my life on how I coach the game and how I approach the game, on really the details of how can I get my players to get better, and how can I give those guys the right tools in their toolbox to help them be successful. Continue talking about the details. So that would be the biggest lesson I've learned. And it's learned in 2019. My first coaching job was 1996. So you never stop learning, man. You never do. And that's one thing that I'm always going to pick guys' brain. I'm always going to try to find ways to become a better coach. If I don't know something, I'm going to call somebody till I get the answer that I'm looking for. I think those things are so important to continue to try to get better as a coach by talking to other coaches. And so that's what I try to take away. That's what I try to give to my young guys that I met with the other night. They're like, how do I continue to grow? Well, you got to meet people and you got to ask questions. And if you do that, you're going to be successful in this game. So, and the word detail, man, that's a powerful word in the game of football and in life. It is also in life, So I would say that probably the biggest lesson I've learned in my coaching profession is understanding what that meant and how to teach my guys what that meant.
BA, thank you for being you. Thank you for your continued commitment to learning. Thank you for pouring into these players. Thank you for pouring into our relationship together. And I love you, brother, and I appreciate you coming on the Burn.
Man, I love you too, man. And again, thank you for having me on here. Awesome time. Love seeing your head, just like mine. I got a fresh head.
Hey, see, I elevated too. I had to go to you for my consult when I went straight bald, like BA, like, how are we going to do this? Like, I got to get rid of this hair. So like, what do we, and you've coached me through the whole thing, and it's a whole different level of elevation.
Level, baby.
Well, to each and every single one of you who tune into the Burn every single week, I hope you realize something from watching this episode. Life is about relationships. And yes, BA and I have had the opportunity to win a lot of football games together, and there's a lot more winning to come. But at the end of the day, it's the relationship we're going to have 10 years and 20 years from now as a result of doing some fun things and pouring into guys. But it's the lifelong relationships that matter in everything that you do. So I have an ask of all of our listeners. I want you to share this episode with somebody for these two reasons. Number one, they need to focus on relationships on their journey and how they lead and coach others. And number two, for you, how can you focus more on the details? Here's Brian Anderson, who's one of the best running backs coaches in America, consistently putting players into the NFL. He's been doing it since 1996, and he just shared with you the best lesson he ever learned. He learned in 2019, 23 years after he got started. So how important are the details to you? Were you moving too fast in 2023? Do you need to slow down and live in those details in 2024? And then now I got a third thing to ask. Make sure you cheer on our Cats this year, because the Big 12 is growing. We're going to Colorado to play against Prime. We got the Arizona Wildcats coming to our place. There's so many new beginnings and excitement in college football, but we got some exciting things that we know that are going on behind the scenes in that little apple in Manhattan, Kansas. So BA, I will see you in a couple of weeks. I cannot wait to kick off this year 6. Once again, I love you, and it's a blessing to be able to pound this stone together.
Love you, man. Take care. Again, thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on. And the last thing, make sure you continue to tune in share this episode. This has been The Burn. And don't forget, why and purpose is not enough. You have to identify that burn, just like BA has done with his brother Kevin, to fight that much harder, to ignite your why and purpose, and to be disciplined on the days that you don't want to do it, and especially after you win.